according to my phone, I've got 102. So rather than keep everybody waiting, I'd like to get things started. As chair, I'd like to call the Arkansas School Safety Commission meeting for September 6, 2022 to order. Angela, who do we have virtually? Mr. Temple and
we have Mr. Temple. Let me see.
Sheriff Helder on yet?
Yes.
Aha, I knew it. What's he doing? Oh, he's sitting on his back porch. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's where we need to meet. No ifs, ands, or buts. We can, never mind. Okay. There's only a couple of general comments that I want to make. Obviously, our final report is due October 1st, which is not that far away. Today's the 6th of September. So I'm figuring we've got meetings on the 13th and the 21st. And then that'll be it for our recommendations. But in the meantime, I desperately need to start pulling together that final report. So if you chairs, and my gosh, y'all, you guys have done an extraordinary job. If you all would, please start shoveling me your recommendations with the justifications that you're comfortable with, then I can start sliding them in to the final report. You know, there may be some things that I add. But I don't think there should be too much. I know there will be a couple in a couple of sections, I think, that I'm going to add some additional stuff. All things that we've talked about, but and the other thing that I want everybody to know is that I did get the final results back. They told me 100%, but that 100% number is a little interesting, and Courtney's looking at me. Yeah, because they didn't answer all the questions. So there will be some questions that there are a whole bunch of people that didn't answer. And so we'll be able to look at that and sort through it. But I do want to thank all the superintendents and their staff who did fill out this survey. As you know, the survey is going to be really important in helping to drive any and support a lot of the recommendations that we have, or generate new recommendations between now and then. I hope to be able to, on your subcommittee meetings this week, go over some of the results with you. There's some things that I need to talk to Dr. Slagle about. And Courtney, we still need to deal with the middle school and junior high data, because that's going to make the interpretation, the elementary school and high school are a piece of cake, but it's the middle school and junior high that we're having a little bit of an issue on numbers. So I'll be able to share some of the stuff with you if we can on future subcommittee meetings. So if you chairs can start shoveling me some stuff, I would be tremendously appreciative. Anything else in a general sense that you all, and we've got Bill Temple and Sheriff Helder that's on virtually. Does anybody have any comments or anything that you want to say prior to us getting started? Okay, super. All right, so we do have a number of recommendations this week. We're making tremendous progress. So what I'd like to do, oh, goodness gracious. Angela, I haven't obviously done this enough yet. First of all, let me just tell you this. You have been phenomenal throughout this entire process. So on behalf of everybody,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
You do a phenomenal job. So we have our minutes from August 30th that we need to approve. So I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve minutes.
Dr. Dunn made a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Mr. Kane, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
motion passes. Good deal. Okay, now we can get to the new committee the new recommendations from subcommittees. So the first ones that we're gonna look at, Director Kane.
Madam Chair, the Physical Security Subcommittee has 3 proposed recommendations for the commission today. The first one is add physical security items to existing Division of Public School Academic Facilities and Transportations, or DPSAFT, Maintenance and Operations Facility Inspection Checklist. DPSAFT will ensure school safety measures are in place and used appropriately. If deficiencies are discovered, the division will follow up with the district, providing those efficiencies for the district to correct within 30 days. And that's our normal process when we do inspections. Area project managers for maintenance will add security safety measures to their inspection forms. The data will be collected through a drop-down form that will include the following items: the date, perimeter doors secured, yes or no, interior doors secured, yes or no, staff wearing badges, yes or no, visitor security, yes or no, drills completed, yes or no. And these items are the same one used by Steve Vera, the security director at Bentonville School District. So we're just taking his ideal and just replicating it. And what this will do, it's going to provide just another layer of support and protection. So I would like to make a motion that the commission approve the following recommendation: add physical security items to existing Division of Public School Academic Facilities and Transportations, DPSAFT, Maintenance and Operations Facility Inspection Checklist.
You need a second for that?
Yes,
You made
I'd
the
like to
motion.
have a
Second.
second.
I would second that.
Thank you, Dr. Hopkins. Any discussion of this item? Angela, would you take the roll call, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn. Yes. Ms. Gann, Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Ms. Graham. Yes. Ms. Green Braswell. Yes. Michelle Helder,
Yes.
Chief Hollenbeck. Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Poston,
Yes.
Mr. Kiefer,
Yes.
Ms. Alice Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Stone.
Yes.
Mr. Temple,
Yes.
motion passes.
Super. Thank you.
The second recommendation before you today is, and I'll read that and then provide a justification. Dedicate at least 20 minutes of Division of Public School Academic Facilities and Transportations, DPSAFT's 3-hour required annual bus driver training to bus security. The bus drivers need clarity on bus security issues and the proper emergency response in the events of a critical incident and other bus security concerns. The required annual bus training already exists, which ensures that all bus drivers receive annual bus security training. This annual training has been proven effective by specific examples of how bus drivers respond in crisis situations. One such example occurred with the Pulaski County Special School District, which is now the Jacksonville North Pulaski School District, on October 7th of 2013. While loading students on a bus, a man waving a knife got on the school bus. The school bus driver used the training she received by keeping the man in front of the school bus. The bus driver also kept the man occupied through conversation, while at the same time keeping the students calm by reassuring them. Drivers are trained on how to make the public aware of a critical situation such as this one. The division has taken a proactive approach for school bus safety on the national level by participation in the School Bus on the Lookout, a training provided through the Transportation Safety Administration. And also, I'd like to add that the two leaders of the transportation team, Janet Clark and Mike Simmons, are in leadership positions on regional and the national board for school bus. And so they have constant conversations on safety and security. Mike Simmons is actually about to become the national president of the organization. That is the title of that organization, National Association of State Directors of Pupil Transportation Services. He'll be named president next month. So he's regularly involved with federal agencies working to keep transportation safe and secure for all students. I'd like to make a motion now that the commission approve the following recommendation. Dedicate at least 20 minutes of Division of Public School Academic Facilities and Transportation's DPSAFT's 3-hour required annual bus driver training to bus security.
Do we have a second?
Make a second.
Secretary Gary? Any discussion? Angela, roll call, please.
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Helder,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Poston,
Yes.
Mr. Kiefer,
Yes.
Ms. Salas Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Temple,
Yes.
motion carries.
Super. One more for you, Mr. Kane.
Yes, the last recommendation before you is as follows. Any doors on district campuses that have faulty locks must have a high priority work order entered immediately, and the faulty locks must be repaired or replaced immediately. According to the Texas House Investigative Committee report on Uvalde, it states that, quote, Robb Elementary had recurring problems with maintaining its doors and locks. In particular, the locking mechanism to room 111 was widely known to be faulty, yet it was not repaired. I'd like to make the following motion. Any doors on district campuses that have faulty locks must have a high priority work order entered immediately, and the faulty locks must be repaired or replaced immediately.
Second. I second.
Crystal,
Yes.
any discussion? Roll call, please, Angela.
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Helder,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Poston,
Yes.
Ms. Salas Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Temple,
Yes.
Mr. Kiefer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Awesome. Great job, Tim. How many more recommendations do you all have?
We'll have a couple next week,
And that'll be it?
and that'll be it.
That's amazing. Thank you. You guys have done an awesome job. Thank you. Next on my list is Intelligence and Communication, Chief Chapman.
Yes, ma'am. First, I'd like to start by saying that the last several subcommittee meetings we've had with our cybersecurity experts has been extremely educational, to say the least. We understand the gravity of the cybersecurity that plays into our overall security plans and the way we should be reviewing that and integrating that into our security plans. So I appreciate subject matter experts. And at this time, I can actually find the recommendation, I printed it out. So I'm gonna allow Dr. May to talk about the justifications for the recommendation and, follow that, man.
You need to stop apologizing.
Well, all right, so I'd like to present the recommendation that school districts should require all school personnel, students, and other key stakeholders, such as school board members who use district digital devices, desktop, laptop, Chromebooks, tablets, mobile phones, smartphones, to participate in cybersecurity awareness training annually and provide monthly ongoing reminders. We determined that this was a very valid and needed recommendation after hearing from our subject matter experts. And I'd like Dr. May, please, to explain our justification for that recommendation.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Chief. And let me, these subject matter experts have worked very, very hard with me over the past month or so. Ray Girdler with the Department of Ed, Dr. Angela Kremers with U of A Pulaski Tech, and Dr. Aaron Finzer with UA Little Rock. We've also had Chad Johnson and Mark Kirby that are with CISA, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, also there to help. So it's definitely been a group effort. We initially had a very, very interesting conversation about cybersecurity. Sometimes we can get a little tunnel vision, and was a little bit difficult for some of the subcommittee members to kind of see cybersecurity in the school security framework. You know, how does this impact the safety of our kids? Well, there are a couple of pages that we actually wrote to help explain that. And one of the things to remember is that when it comes to cybersecurity, probably the most frequent cyber attack or malware attack is ransomware. And ransomware can be very devastating for the school. If it is a double-edged ransomware attack, it can cause personally identifiable information about students, teachers, but also the parents, since there's a lot of paperwork that is required for the parents to do. And so that information can make these individuals and that information very, very vulnerable. So when we go to answer the question, you know, why should cybersecurity be included in school safety? There are two major things to talk about. First of all, when we think of school security, we think of oftentimes, if you take the mental health stuff out of it, we talk about the physical security side of things. But if you look at a lot of the recommendations that we've actually approved already, such as access control door locks, surveillance cameras, visitor management systems, all of these are actually integrated into the school's network. And so if the network gets compromised, then it's very possible that these digital or electronic systems can also get compromised. When it comes to the personal data of the individuals, I know everybody at this table have talked about and know about identity theft. It can be debilitating to a person's life. But when it comes to our kids, the thing that I like to emphasize is the fact that with all that personal information, our children can become targets for bullying, for youth trafficking, also known as human trafficking. And it can cause, and also let's not forget about the pedophiles that are out there, because if a ransomware does occur, then that information can be sold on the dark web. And so our children can become targets that way, which is not a good thing for their safety. So I think that there is sufficient evidence to prove that cybersecurity should be I mean, when you look at the number of schools that are having cybersecurity incidents across the country, depending upon what resource you go to, it's somewhere around 1,000. And that 1,000 schools impacted, a tremendous amount of money. Schools are targeted primarily because of the really juicy personal information that they have, but also because they're seen as having a lot of money. And so when it comes to the ransomware attack, it's either they lock down the systems, or they're going to lock down the system and also ransom for the personal information that's on there. So when we look at the recommendations and we look at an overall cybersecurity program, what's important to realize is that the number one gateway through which a lot of these viruses and malware enter the system is actually through email. And our recommendation about awareness training is critically important. If you look at the number of schools that have said that they train all of their staff, there's only 21% that responded that way. So our schools are not providing basic awareness, cybersecurity awareness training, and that can open the floodgates. All it takes is one inappropriate click. There are a whole bunch of states that require that all state agencies or all state employees have a basic cybersecurity awareness or hygiene program. Arkansas is not one of those. And so we can look at a wide variety of lists. Now, the other thing is, too, we felt that it was important that we also mention that, while there are some solutions to the cybersecurity preparedness for schools that are very costly, this is one thing that will not cost, that should not cost them a dime. I've mentioned the National Cybersecurity Preparedness Consortium that I chair and that CJI is part of. There's a 2-hour online class that we have available at no cost that talks about cybersecurity in the workforce. There are IT coordinators at each of the co-ops that can also provide. Now, these are in person, and sometimes in person can be a little bit more difficult to coordinate than an online class. And CISA also has a variety of resources. So we as a group felt like making this a requirement for all staff in schools or key stakeholders that use the schools or have access to the school's network system, particularly email, should at least take it annually. We had some conversations about, there really isn't a national standard, but yet all the federal agencies do require, including CISA, do require all their staff to take cybersecurity awareness training every year. And so that's what we settled with for this recommendation. Chief, anything I left out?
No, ma'am, other than the fact that it is occurring here in Arkansas. As she stated, between 1,000 and 1,300 schools were affected nationwide last year. And I believe there were 3 cyber attacks actually in the state of Arkansas that affected 8 school districts here and over 9,000 children last year. So it is very important. And as our schools become more technology based and integrate more of our security measures into their system, obviously a cyber attack could devastate a school's physical ability to take care of our children. So I believe it's a very important. And again, thank you to our subject matter experts, Ray Gidler and Drs. Kramer and Fenzer. We couldn't have done this without them.
Yeah, and I'd like to add one more thing too. Not only as we start to expand technology in our schools, which is a good thing for school safety, we're also, the kids growing up are becoming more and more cyber and digitally focused. And so most of the threats can still come within internally. So I think that's one thing that we most certainly don't need to forget. It's not external, but it can also be internal through somebody making a mistake and clicking on something, or a student nefariously trying to do something with the system.
Yes, ma'am. And with that, I'd like to make the recommendation. School districts should require all school personnel, students, and other key stakeholders, such as school board members who use district digital devices, i.e. desktops, laptops, Chromebooks, tablets, mobile phones, or smartphones, to participate in cybersecurity awareness training annually and provide monthly ongoing reminders. That is our recommendation, ma'am.
Lori Poston, second. Any discussion, any questions?
What do you mean by monthly reminders?
The 2 to 3 minute short videos or monthly reminders. Dr. May, you want to explain that a little bit more?
Yes, Dr. Dunn, one of the things that DESE already has in place is what they call a monthly newsletter. And it's sent out by their, I guess, what's Ray's title? Courtney, is he IT coordinator?
He's in our research and technology director, something along those lines.
Yeah, but he does a newsletter. And so he's going to push out that newsletter monthly. And so it'll have there.
I think my question was really just the wording, like I'm just being a little picky about like
Oh, you
monthly
being picky?
reminders of key cybersecurity aware tips or something, like
Yeah,
I just felt like it wasn't totally clear. I'm very picky.
ongoing reminders of cyber hygiene and threats. Would that be better? Okay. Do you want to reread it, Chief?
Let's see if we can get the word. Provide monthly ongoing relevant cyber training, cyber awareness training.
Yeah, the way Ray categorized it was security awareness, and his newsletter is the Security Awareness Insider. So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, that's all in the
Yeah.
the supporting materials.
So if we rephrase the last portion of that, provide monthly ongoing cyber hygiene security training.
And reminders. Or even if we said and provide monthly ongoing reminders of cyber hygiene and threat and potential threats.
All right, to restate the recommendation. School districts should require all school personnel, students, and other key stakeholders, such as school board members who use district digital devices, desktops, laptops, Chromebooks, tablets, mobile phones, and smartphones, to participate in cyber awareness training annually and provide monthly ongoing cyber hygiene and potential threat training. Thank you, ma'am.
We have a second, Ms. Poston. Details. Any further discussion? Would you run the roll, please, Angela?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Gary.
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Helder,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Kiefer, Ms. Alice Ford.
Yes.
Ms. Stone, Mr. Temple.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, I'm trying to find, Secretary Gary, you are up next, sir.
All right, thank you. So the Audits, Emergency Operation Plans and Drills Subcommittee, this is actually our last recommendation that we had on our schedule and this really kind of ties some of our previous ones together. But even going back to our 2018 school report, we talked about additional things that local emergency managers would help on. And I remember after that report came out at our annual conference, I warned the county emergency managers that they would probably be hearing from some of the schools requesting assistance for their emergency operations plans, exercises, and so forth. And that actually did take place. And in this, some of our recommendations for that came out of this subcommittee, there's a couple of them that we relied on the local emergency managers to assist on. And, I will tell you, currently every county, every 75 counties, they each have a designated emergency manager. Some of those are full-time and some of them are part-time, and they have a lot of other duties, but the emergency management is an extra duty that they may have. So because we are asking quite a bit more of those local emergency managers, this recommendation, and I'll just read the title of it, to prepare for, respond to, recover from, and mitigate threats to our schools, it is our recommendation that every county has a full-time, qualified, and resolute local emergency manager. The justification for this, the county emergency manager will work with local school districts to help prepare, respond, recover, and mitigate threats. They assist the school districts on full-scale exercises and tabletop exercises. The local emergency management director is the conduit between local needs and state and federal resources during times of natural and man-made disasters. With a noticeable increase in these events across the state, as well as an increase in daily duties and requirements being placed on the county emergency managers from countywide stakeholders, it is recommended that every county have a full-time, qualified, and resolute emergency manager. Currently, partial funding for the county emergency managers comes from federal funding in the form of an emergency management performance grant, which may fluctuate year to year and is not guaranteed in years to come. By adequately funding the county emergency managers through dedicated and sustainable funding, we will ensure that every county in the state, regardless of economic status, is receiving a similar level of service in regards to their readiness levels, ability to coordinate with exercises, and develop comprehensive preparedness plans. So again, this is just kind of a recommendation that we have those full-time county emergency managers, that they're dedicated to emergency management in those counties, and that we seek out a sustainable funding for those positions, and that they be qualified and trained to be able to do those duties. So I'll restate in a motion. My motion is to prepare for, respond to, recover from, and mitigate threats to our schools. It is our recommendation that every county has a full-time, qualified, and resolute local emergency manager.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I'm seeing some. Any discussion?
I'd like to add that an active, resolute emergency manager in each county is probably one of the most important positions in a critical incident. We overlook that position, the fact that they can coordinate so many outside entities and ensure that all the resources are being brought to bear. It's very easy for us as separate entities, whether it's law enforcement, schools, fire services, EMS, to not see the big picture. Your emergency manager provides that oversight and that umbrella that is often needed, and they will bring resources to the table that we'll often overlook. I think
Yeah,
it's a critical position.
I completely agree. And I also want to add that they can be a tremendous resource for development of emergency operation plans for our schools, continuity of operation plans. And, when it comes to doing their assessments, their comprehensive school safety assessments. So there's some additional reasons why having full-time people in each county, emergency managers, can be very, very helpful.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
AJ, how many of the 75 is LEPC required? The local emergency planning committees, is that a requirement for each county?
Oh, I should know that, and I don't. I think so. I know some of them are really active. Some of them may not be. But again, that may depend on, it may go back to, do they have that full-time support or is part-time?
Just in talking to my counterparts in other schools around the state, a lot of them aren't even aware of what account, of course, we do in Craighead County, we're active.
Yeah,
And I actually go to the meetings. Most of them don't have anything to do with me, but
Yeah.
occasionally a little gym comes up.
Yeah.
But it's nice to know the players.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, and I will add to what Linda was saying, if you think back to our 2018 survey
Mhm.
that we did, or 2019, I'm getting my dates wrong. 2019, I mean, there were less than 30% of our schools that said that they work with county emergency managers. And so that's why in the legislation, they're also mentioned for schools to work with them and local law enforcement. So it's in line with what we want to do. Any additional discussion or questions? Angela, could you take the roll, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yeah.
Miss Graham,
Yes.
Miss Green Braswell. Yes. Sheriff Helder,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Kiefer,
Yes.
Miss Poston, Miss Salas Ford, Miss Stone, Mr. Temple.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Super. Next on our list is Sheriff Helder. Are you ready, sir?
I am. Thanks, Dr. May. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Apologize for not being there in person. I had a doctor's appointment mid-morning, which precluded me from attending. So I'm going to do my best to muddle through this and see what we can come up with. This should be our recommendation number 4 from the Law Enforcement Security Subcommittee. All school districts that have a certified school security officer program should establish communications with the city and/or county law enforcement administrators that serve the school district. The district and the agency should work cooperatively to develop plans that will address the joint response to an active school killer incident. The plan should address, go ahead.
He forgot to put his phone on silent, didn't he?
Sorry about that. Just like the FBI to interrupt the locals.
Oh, that was Bill. What a-
That's a good one, Tim. My buddy. All right.
Oh,
So
that's
we're
awesome.
we're gonna look at the plans should address the following. Ensure that there are armed personnel on campus that will respond to an active killer incident. Provide the names, photos, and information concerning where a school district's armed responders are typically located on campus. The school district and law enforcement agencies should work together to offer training opportunities that would allow school personnel and law enforcement to train together. Joint training within school facilities utilizing alert should be a priority. The joint training should address how law enforcement will enter school buildings and link up with the certified school security officers. It should be made clear to all the CSSOs that when law enforcement officers arrive on scene, the law enforcement officers will take command. Link up and command should be based on alert procedures. The district and the law enforcement agencies should work together to develop ways that allow for quick identification of CSSOs by visual and auditorial means. The school district and primary responding law enforcement agency should develop a means of direct communication via radio, which is to be used only in the event of an active killer incident. As witnessed in Uvalde, initial armed responders were unable to engage the shooter. It was later determined that through the lack of uniform training, protocol, and command and control, the momentum of the priority of stopping the killer was lost. By creating a standard plan based on advanced law enforcement rapid response training protocols, if someone stops progressing forward to end the threat, others on scene will push on in spite of indecision. Furthermore, By communicating and training with the law enforcement agency of jurisdiction, the transition of incident command to law enforcement will be seamless. By providing vital information about CSSOs within the school district and establishing quick identification from protocol, friendly fire incidents can be avoided and valuable time will not be wasted while trying to engage the killer. As a final point, communication is paramount between the school district and law enforcement with jurisdiction. A radio with police department frequency would create a clear line of communication as the law enforcement agency is responding to an active killer incident. Would you like for me to restate the recommendation, Madam Chair?
Yes, if you would like to make that motion, you most certainly can.
Yes, ma'am. I make the motion that recommendation 4 be accepted, and it is as stated, all school districts that have a certified school security officer program should establish communications with the city and or county law enforcement administrators that serve the school district. The district and the agencies should work cooperatively to develop plans that will address the joint response to an active school killer incident.
Sheriff Helder, I need to ask one big favor.
Yes, ma'am.
It's commissioned school security officer.
Rats. I think you told me that. I failed to correct it.
Okay, no worries. Rats Meister.
Rats.
Let's see. I probably have that throughout the document. I do.
Yeah, you do. It's
All right.
there in black and white.
I'm pretty sure you told me to do that just so you can embarrass me publicly.
Embarrassment is not the intent, sir.
Would you like for me to restate with the
Yes,
correct wording?
If you could, please. My apologies.
All school districts that have a commissioned school security officer program should establish communications with the city and or county law enforcement administrators that serve the school district. The district and the agencies should work cooperatively to develop plans that will address the joint response to an active school killer incident. And that is my motion.
I'll take it. Is there a second?
I second.
Was that Linda Graham? Ms. Graham? Any discussion? I think the intent of this is to make sure it's for the safety of the commissioned school security officers and law enforcement. And I think that it's a very, very, very good idea.
I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the safety equipment that we talked about in a previous recommendation for SROs.
Yeah.
Will that be for this group too? I just wanted, I don't know.
In the recommendation, and I noticed that when I was looking at some stuff last week, I noticed that CSSOs were not mentioned in the equipment recommendation, but we can easily go back, and I think we should. So thank you for reminding me, Crystal, to go back to that recommendation, Sheriff, and modify it and revise it so that it says that SROs and CSSOs have quick access to that equipment. Does that?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we talked about that, and I thought our concern for the superintendents that were in the meeting, you had only talked about the funding being available for SROs, but are you now saying that you believe funding would be available for the CSSOs as well for the go bags?
I guess maybe where there's a little bit of confusion is in my head, I didn't necessarily see it for each individual SRO. I thought of it as for each campus.
Well, we can have separate go bags, I suppose, but the reason that when we included vests, helmets, things of that nature, they are kind of specific to the size of a person, is why we went with individual SROs.
And
I guess maybe the ballistic shields, Crystal,
Yes.
would that be what you were referring to?
yes, and I'm just asking for those campuses that don't necessarily have an SRO or would have an SRO, they would only have the CCSO.
CSSO, yes,
CSSO.
Commission School Security Office.
With some of that equipment, it's law enforcement specific for from a purchasing standpoint. So there may be an issue there as well with body armor and certain things like that. So I'm not sure how we would address that. If the local agency would have to purchase and donate to the school, or Director Gary, I mean, body armor is very specific, ballistic shields, those type things. So I don't know how we would necessarily address that.
Is there training associated with using the ballistic shields?
I would
Required
say
training?
absolutely.
That's,
I would say at breaching tools, ballistic shield work, those type things. Obviously, anyone can put on a vest. But when it comes to properly using shields or breaching a door, there's very specific training that's usually, again, law enforcement based. So I'm not sure how we would restate that recommendation.
yeah, we're gonna have to think about it, because I think that, and the numbers are going through my head. If we've got 460 SROs and 233 districts, that means we've got almost 30 districts that don't have SROs that may end up having CSSOs.
I'm in agreement.
Don't know that for sure.
Right. I'm in agreement that the equipment's needed, but I don't know how we address the CSSOs
Right,
with some of that equipment from a training standpoint or a purchasing standpoint.
right. And there's also the issue of how engaged should they be? Because law enforcement should get there pretty quickly. So maybe maybe that's the reason why the SROs were the primary ones. I mean, well, let me ask a different way. Is there anything that can be done equipment wise that would help the CSSOs in their role in an active shooter incident?
So with the ballistic vests, if you were to buy, like for us, we go get size. They take all the measurements and it's custom made to us. There are universal plate carrier systems out there
Sure.
that could be purchased, and you can buy level 4 plates that would be available. But like Chief said, the ballistic shields, there's training that goes with that. The breaching equipment, there's specific training that goes with that. So I think the plate carriers, any of the stop the bleed kits and the stop the bleed training would definitely
Would be available
benefit.
for anybody,
Right.
including CSSOs. Sheriff, what are your thoughts, sir?
That perhaps we circle back around to recommendation 3, I think it was, and maybe just make an addendum that the items that are not personally fitted will be made accessible to CSSOs as well. That would be something like the breaching tools, the medical first aid kits. That's just my initial thought. Chris, David, somebody?
I'll tell you the reason I didn't say a lot when that came through is my vision of that was I've got one school resource officer, I've got 6 campuses, but he is on all 6 campuses.
Right.
And in the event that, that goes through, or we have to get that equipment, or if we're able to get that equipment, I would purchase that equipment for each campus, and it would be available to him or whoever needed it at that moment on that campus. And I was looking at more kind of the generic plate carrier system, that sort of thing is what we would probably do. And then as far as bleed kits and that sort of thing, we've already gone down that road, and that's part of CSSO training also.
Sure.
So the part that's not is the door breaching. And so I'm kind of investigating that and looking into that possibility. But it is true that our commissioned school security officers, the thought behind that is they may be in the classroom right beside where the attack happens, and they're not going to have time to
go get anything.
Their job is go to the sound of gunfire and stop.
That's
the gunfire.
correct.
So, but there may be another CSSO or school resource officer that's responding to that within the building that might have time or it might be right by the equipment and be able to get it and go to that spot. But I think it's worth having the equipment available, because there could be a scenario where it needs to be used.
Mm-hmm. Crystal, what's going through your head?
I'm just listening. But my concern was those individuals who are not SROs that are going in to try to stop an attacker, and they may not have that specialized,
And the protection that
yeah,
they
the
need.
protection that they need. And so it may be one of those situations where they don't go because they don't have the protection or hesitate or something, I'm just thinking about those individuals.
Maybe it's as easy as adding to that recommendation, Sheriff Helder, a training component for the CSSOs for that particular equipment. That may be, we may be able to address most of it if we properly train them or add some sort of training component to that, because Jerry's absolutely right. They can purchase stock plate carriers. Helmets are available. The ballistic shields are probably a little more restrictive. Breaching tools require a level of training. So maybe if we add a training component to that recommendation, we can shore up that just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. So why don't we, at Thursday's meeting, we'll address recommendation 3 to see if we can do a little patchwork and bring it back before the commission next week. That'd be all right, Doc? Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Crystal. Okay, so that's it for the Law Enforcement and Security Subcommittee, correct, Amundo?
I think you had a motion and a second, and then
Oh,
discussion
we
started.
got
We didn't have a vote.
sideways. Oh, okay. Thanks for keeping me quote unquote honest. So is there any additional discussion? Okay, Angela, would you take the roll call, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Ms. Graham, Ms. Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Helder,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Kiefer,
Yes.
Miss Alice Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Stone, Mr. Temple.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Super. Thank you, guys. That was a very, very good discussion, and thank you for speaking up, Crystal. Ms. Poston, it is your turn, I reckon.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, the Mental Health Prevention Subcommittee has 2 recommendations to bring before the commission today. The first one being as follows. The Arkansas Center for School Safety should coordinate a planning group to focus on the development and implementation of a statewide school safety anonymous or confidential tip line. This is something that we have discussed frequently, and we feel like this should be a resource that offers our students, our parents, and community members an opportunity to anonymously or confidentially report threats to student safety. In addition, the tip line should also serve as a means of support for students for a range of challenges. These might include bullying, harassment, concerns about suicide or self-harm, other safety-related issues. While the tip line would not serve as a substitute for a school counselor or mental health care, the school safety tip line would serve as another layer of safety, of a safety net for our students. The purpose of both this tip line and a behavioral threat assessment team is to support our students, to identify students who are at risk as early as possible, to provide timely and appropriate support and resources, including mental health services. We've also discussed several times that experts emphasize that punitive responses to reported or perceived threats, in contrast, have the opposite effect, and they deter reporting and further alienate the most vulnerable at-risk students and families. So to repeat, I would like to make a motion.
Could I add some information before you make
certainly.
your official motion?
Yes.
The reason why the center is being put forward as the lead on this is our current BJA grant, Bureau of Justice Assistance grant. We have an opportunity to leverage some resources that fit very, very nicely within this goal.
So I would like to make a motion that the following recommendation be approved by the commission. The Arkansas Center for School Safety should coordinate a planning group to focus on the development and implementation of a statewide school safety anonymous or confidential tip line.
Second.
Did somebody ask for a second yet? Just because it was Tim. I mean, if I don't give him a hard time about that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I had to, Tim. I'm sorry. Any discussion? Angela, would you take the roll, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Helder,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Poston,
Yes.
Mr. Kiefer,
Yes.
Ms. Salas Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Temple.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Super. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our second recommendation to come before you today is a revision of the previous recommendation 6 from our section of the report. And it states now, coordinated school crisis response team should be developed at the state, regional, district, and campus level to ensure effective crisis management and mitigate the negative impact of any traumatic event that involves schools. In 2018, we recommended that there be a process to implement a utilize training personnel across the state. There's been some work on this over the years. Since 2019, staff members from DESE have researched and reviewed crisis response training models. NOVA was recently designated as the crisis response model that will be utilized to train teams that can provide critical education and emotional first aid training in mass casualty, natural disasters, or other events that impact Arkansas schools and communities. We went on in our justification to talk about a DESE designee should serve as the point of contact and work with the NOVA personnel, school districts, and other key stakeholders to provide training and services. We shared some additional crisis models and initiatives that are available in the state as well. There are already efforts at the Department of Education with DESE to provide some training. There are some dates scheduled already. So we felt like we wanted to further support the work going on, but we do feel like that multiple layers of a team should be trained and prepared to respond to any sort of a crisis or event that affects our schools in a negative way. Anybody want to add anything?
She looks at me.
So I would make a motion that the following recommendation be approved by the commission. Coordinated school crisis response team should be developed at the state, regional, district, and campus level to ensure effective crisis management and to mitigate the negative impact of any traumatic event that involves schools.
I second.
Who second?
You know it. I've been waiting for this for years.
Yeah, Ms. Graham. Is there any discussion? I think one of the big advantages to using the NOVA system is the fact that Chief Chapman and Sheriff Helder, as you know, we have similar programs within the law enforcement community in case of a critical incident. And it's been extremely successful.
Yeah, I have a question. The question deals with how frequently will, at least on a campus level, this surface in regards to ensuring that persons are aware of the various services that are provided and how to coordinate this. And what I'm trying to get at, because, you know, on a school campus, persons move, they change positions and things of that nature. So I'm thinking that it should be done, at least on a campus level, as far as the training at least annually, to ensure that there's continuity. I don't exactly know how to word that, but there's an evolving type of situation. So on a campus, they really need to be clear that at least annually, that on the campus level, that they convene this group at the beginning of the school year to ensure that all persons are aware of their roles and responsibilities and how to coordinate with efforts from the school level to the district to the region and state.
I would think the same. I would think the safety coordinators, that would be part of their responsibilities on each campus. And the trainings, the NOVA training is a 3-day training. So it might be that there would be people that would get a mini training or something and then make sure the safety coordinators and a few other people have the training.
I think there's going to be turnover at all levels, regardless. And some of them may end up being the school safety coordinator if they have a mental health interest, maybe not. Dr. Hopkins?
I was just curious about the regional level. How is that going to be structured?
We don't have a lot of specifics on that right now. Kind of just what has been talked about is, each school district would have a team and then maybe 1 or 2 individuals from each of those districts kind of having a regional team, but that'll be something that our new Safe Schools coordinator will.
That coordinator, absolutely.
At the state level, will be tasked with working with the co-ops in the school districts to kind of figure out how that's going to be implemented. But that's just what's been discussed now, is during these initial trainings, maybe identifying some key individuals to form a regional team.
And maybe that's another area where the co-ops.
Right. Mhm. Yeah, it could contain co-op staff or just district staff, or a combination, most likely.
Yep.
I think that'd be a good place.
Somehow I knew that.
Well, I mean, it's just our structure.
No, you're absolutely correct. Okay, any additional discussion? Is there any need to change any of the language? I didn't hear anything. It was just questions about implementation, correct? Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second. We've had discussion. Angela, would you take the roll, please?
Dr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Burton,
Yes.
Mr. Kane,
Yes.
Chief Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Gary,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Green Braswell,
Yes.
Sheriff Helder,
Yes.
Dr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. Poston, Mr. Kiefer,
Yes.
Ms. Salas Ford, Ms. Stone, Mr. Temple.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. I think that's everything on our list. The one thing that I'm going to try to start doing next time, I hope. It's a short week, so I've got to realize I've already lost a day. Is bringing forth some broader, non-subcommittee specific recommendations. And some of those may end up being based on results of the survey. And again, if you have any ideas on what some of those broader recommendations would be, I'm more than happy to listen to those, and then we can have our open discussion as a group in this forum next time. You guys are looking at me. Is there a, oh, okay, because I thought you were conniving over there. Yeah, okay, yeah, so yeah, I'm going to state the obvious, right? No ifs, ands, or buts. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Please also start giving me some additional information for the final report. And if I'm not mistaken, our next meeting is going to be held September 13th. at 1 o'clock, same place, same time. But remember, our following meeting will not be on the 20th, the Tuesday. It'll be on Wednesday, the 21st. We twisted into pretzels just to make me happy. Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Y'all are awesome.